Well, good evening, folks, and thank you for being here. My name is Timothy Gager, and welcome to virtual Thursday's Dire Literary Series. And it's nice to be back after a week off. And our guest is Mr. Gary Grossman. And let me just tell you a little bit about Gary. And I'm going to quiz Gary on this bio. But the most thing you need to know, besides Gary's self deprivation, because I'm sure he's none of those things, but Gary's a really interesting dude. He's a scientist. He is a fish enthusiast. He is a writer. He writes poetry, graphic novels. He is a musician. He is a sculptor. He's written a cookbook. He plays music. So it's just a wonderful, wonderful guest. And I love creative people. And I'm really, really excited to hear Gary's poetry and his other writing. So with that, I'm going to take you over to Mr. Gary Grossman.
Thank you, Tim. And it's an honor to be here, and thank all of you for attending. I'm going to mainly read poetry, but I also thought that I'd show my graphic novel and maybe flip a couple of pages. It's not really something I can read from. And this first edition was self-published, and I'm going to drop the email where you can get it in the chat. It also is on my website, which Tim showed a minute ago. Let's see here. I have trouble doing two things at once. So I started writing poetry in high school, way back in the last century. And there was a hiatus of about, 25 years maybe. And then when my kids were born in the 90s, I started up again. And back in the days of self-addressed stamped envelopes and nobody sent you a rejection letter, you just never heard from a journal if your work didn't go in. Kind of sent things out off and on for about a decade, not much. And then somehow COVID just triggered my poetry gene. And I started writing again daily and sending things out, and that resulted in, maybe it would be better right side up, this book here, which you can get from, and I'll drop this in the chat, Kelsey Books. It's also available via Amazon. And if you'd like an inscribed copy, just drop me an email, and I am going to put my email in the chat right now. So what do I write about? What kind of, I'll read a few poems in a minute, but I guess my goal as a poet is to see and extract the beauty from everyday life. And so I guess with that, I will start reading. So most of these poems are from my book that I just showed. I have another book coming out in December, and also originally scheduled for March of next year, but we've moved that up. Inspired Press is going to bring out a second edition of my graphic novel. But this poem is called Transformation. Avocados follow the laws of physics, not conservation of mass, but Newton's third, every action an equal and opposite reaction. And the second law of thermodynamics, because this avocado, grocery stacked yesterday like green cordwood, and at least as hard, has become entropic overnight, now a flaccid globe of canary and brown flesh. This transmutation, how and where? In the tan paper sack perched on the rear seat? Nope, still firm exiting the bag. In my kitchen, secretly caressed at night by the ethylene Lilith that seduces all my fruit, because bananas do me the same way. Who knows? A minute, an hour, a day. We are all slowly dissolving, fodder for the next star. Most of these poems have been published previously in reviews. That was in Verse Virtual, as is this one, entitled The Dishwasher. Rearranging the dishwasher is my thing. A family joke run amok. I peer over shoulders. Dad, aren't you glad we're even putting plates in? But I move 2 blue striped bowls from bottom to top and the small plates to the center, where they evade the rotating sprayer, wife and daughters laughing. Does it really matter? And of course it doesn't. Like so many things done and said every day, force of habit, or the mirage of control of our environment, as in, this is my house. 2. It is my one attempt at engineering, or is it geometry? Filling a finite space to the maximum, efficiency squared, or you might just think me lazy, while I ensure the lowest number of dishes that I myself must wash. Or perhaps a mild neurosis, my inability to just let things slide, like lights on throughout the night, accepting what I cannot change. 3. When they were younger and had friends sleep over, after lights out, when they were nestled in bed, small bird voices would fly out from their slightly open doors. What's that noise? Oh, don't worry. It's only my dad rearranging the dishwasher. This next poem is entitled Apostrophe, and you're all poets, I take it, but it refers to a poem that is written to an individual or individuals. Apostrophe. One more child lies silent in my wife's womb. No pulse, no moving limbs, nothing left to say as once again your milligrams pull down my eyelids, damming the salty river of my needs. I was sure the muscles of my heart were strong enough to support us all. But the roulette wheel came up 00, and there you lay, a withered fruit on the sonogram screen. My teeth clacked when standing just outside the door, someone asked, "How you doing?" No sound passed my lips as the steady rain began to fall on my gray-streaked chestnut hair. Then my shirt, hat forgotten, still grasped in my taut right hand. This poem is called The Losses of COVID-19. What do I miss most, they ask. A tight hug, I say, more than 15 seconds. The warmth of bodies known and new. The softness of blouses, and even the crushed goose down feeling of insulated coats. Memories freed by someone's scent. Hugs, coming and going, greeting and parting, new or familiar. Hands lightly stroking my back, granting a good squeeze. And this is a fairly new poem. It actually will be published. It hasn't come out yet, but it's entitled Bloodroot in March. For those of you that aren't botanists, bloodroot is one of the first forest flowers that we see in the springtime. It's called bloodroot because its root exudes a dark red liquid when you mash it up, and the Native Americans drank that as a spring tonic. 1. Regardless of the year, it's the first flower seen on my daily hikes, pushing through every November's abandoned duvet of tan and umber, a patchwork of ash, oak, maple, and hickory. I pause, eyelids unspooled like a tired window blind, and inhale the forest's green anticipation. 2. Willingly, this could be my last breath, absorbing the effortless geometry of these 8 ivory petals rising from leaves mimicking round Japanese fans from the 1840s. 3. How is it that small perfections can both break and reassemble us, as if we were Adam or Eve on day 1 of the completed world, mouths agape at finding the first flower? And this is called Ordering an Apple. I write a lot about living in the South. I've lived here 40 years, and I really enjoy it. And of course, some might argue that Athens, Georgia, isn't quite the South, and they would be right. Okay, quartering an apple. What does it mean to slice up fruit? To dissemble an organic universe into parts, dismemberment not from anger or spite, but merely for ease of consumption. Those 4 slices set skin down like unfooted salad bowls, wobbling slightly back and forth as I pick up the plate. You may quarter any apple with the same result. Wine sap, delicious, Macintosh, even the new sweet as a spring sunrise lemonade apples I bought at the rusty nail-stained fruit stand on the 4-lane, South Carolina Route 25 between Greenville and Asheville. Didn't Isaac plead with Abraham? But isn't the whole more than the separated parts? And if he was sacrificed, would our people have been the first quarter removed from the Godhead? Which circles back to the planetary shape of apples and Eve's desire for that first taste, and my odd curiosity regarding which type of apple did she choose. Do religions agree to disagree about this? Did she choose Catholic sweet like the lemonade, or Wiccan tart like a Fuji? Jewish long-lasting like an Arkansas black, or Puritan bitter like a thick skin of a Granny Smith? What would physics say about all of this? And I think I'll close with this. Am I doing okay on time, Tim? Okay. I'll read this. If there's time for more, let me know. This is called Make the Barbies Talk, Daddy. 1. They don't sleep, our kids, 2 and 6. So we stumble through the days. Our bedroom, the brood chamber, queen, single, and crib, while clean laundry shouts, fold me, from the blue plastic lattice basket squatting in the 1 unclogged square meter of bedroom. But there is no room for feet or arms to sort clean boxers. So I wear nylon gym shorts, washable daily, in our white cold bathroom sink. 2. We climb the hours until bedtime. Our PhDs grant knowledge and fretful thoughts as we navigate the minefield of our home. Eyeless toes step lightly, avoiding homeless pacifiers and Legos strewn like Monet's poppies across the red oak floor. At times, we take only half breaths and shrug as another furrow joins the quartet at Lips Corner. 3. I find myself a father, only child raised by a single mother, young girls and tiaras a mystery, though my wife is youngest of 6 and like a homing salmon intuits this zigzag path of raising 21st century girls. Masters of the classrooms, our tools, logic and analysis, mostly fail us with these girls. Some dilemmas ethical. Should we or should we not buy the requested Barbies? Some make the cut. Scientist Barbie, Latinx and African American Barbies, engineer Barbie. My mother said, a boy? No dolls. 4. Nightmares run through one more night, and I'm empty as a cicada's husk. But it's time to anoint the Barbies with life, and I am clueless, eyes a half-open shade. My back against Rachel's bed, we sit on the gray-brown braided bathroom rug. A
Thank
Barbie
you,
in each, excuse me?
Sorry.
Yeah,
Go
so
ahead.
I'm not done yet. We sit on the braided bedroom rug, a Barbie in each hand, and she says in her slightly irritated bird voice, make the Barbies talk, Daddy, make them talk. So I'm thumbing through my weariness in search of something creative, morphing Barbie 1 into a surgeon performing an appendectomy, while Barbie 2 quickly earns a PhD in astrophysics and begins lecturing on black holes. I amuse Rachel for 5.5 minutes, and then she says, that was okay, but now let's change their outfits. And that's it.
Thank you, Gary. I'm sorry for cutting in on you, but wow, what a wonderful poem. Was that Barbie poem written before or after the Barbie movie phenomena?
Before, and it was published in Verse Virtual in March of 2023.
So it's all timing.
Precious. Yeah, it was a prescient poem for sure.
You could become the poet laureate of the Barbie movie.
What an honor, as long as I get some residuals.
It's all back end, as they say. So just reading your bio, you basically described yourself as modest talent, little fear of failure, with a love of creativity. How has that served you?
Well, I think it served me well. I think that in my 40 years of being a professor, my habit of coloring outside the lines led me into conflict with administrators. So that was not always pleasant, but I don't know. I've done a lot of things and had a lot of fun doing them. So all in all, I've been well served by those characteristics.
40 years of being a professor, you certainly don't look like you've taught for 40 years. I would not have guessed. So, but it sounds like also you have your hands in a lot of things with the creativity. First of all, you're a scientist, and sometimes the sides of the brain, the creative side, the scientific side, are distinctly different. How do you juggle those?
Well, it's interesting. I just gave an Ollie talk. I don't know if Ollie is this Kellogg Foundation group that funds free classes. Maybe they're not free, but classes at universities for seniors. And so I did this class on my memoir, which goes through, of course, my scientific life. So I had to look up that sort of right brain, left brain thing. And it turns out that there's actually, not to contradict my host, there's not much evidence for it, that it's just, if you look at those studies where they inject things into people's brains and then ask them to do various things while they're scanning their brains, it turns out that both sides light up, whether it's an analytical question or whether it's an artistic question. So I would take refuge in that I don't see, I say that doing good science and writing a good poem really have the same goal, and that is seeing something completely new and unusual in the everyday world. So,
which of those two are more rewarding for you?
Well, I retired a year ago, and I'm not really doing any science now, and uh, I'm happy with that. But there was quite a while when I was doing both, and the poetry kind of cleansed my brain for the science. So I can't say I enjoy doing one more than the other. It's kind of like Ecclesiastes. There's a time for everything, and my time for poetry and creative writing is now.
And with your graphic novel, you talked about the endangering of some species of fish and the environment, and it's very, very well put together. So with fish, you connect with fish. Why fish instead of, say, something like lemurs? What's your connection?
Yeah, I mean, my position actually was an animal ecologist, although most of my research was with fish. And when I was a kid, I mean, I had snakes and, toads and all sorts of pets. And when my kids were little, this room that I'm in right now was lined with aquaria. And we had turtles and snakes and 4 species of frogs. And so anyway, fish, I don't know. I guess I could catch them, whereas I couldn't catch lemurs. Uh, so there are some interesting characteristics about fish. They're the most diverse class of vertebrates. There are more species of fish in the world than all other vertebrates combined. So there's a lot of knowledge out there to grasp. You can do experiments on them, and the animal rights people don't come after you. So there are both logistical and I guess aesthetic reasons as well. I mean, I just when the first time I put on in like 1979, I put on a mask and a snorkel and ducked my head below the surface of the stream. And it was like I'd been transformed into Jacques Cousteau. I mean, it was a whole new world down there that looking from above, you couldn't imagine. And so that's another thing, I suppose, from a logistical point of view, is if you get in the water, fish don't realize you're a human. They just think you're some big thing. And so you can observe them and get natural behavior, and they're just fascinating to watch.
Now, along with keeping with the theme of writing for this question, you opened with that your goal of poetry was to see and extract beauty from everyday life. Are there ever days that there just feel like there's just no beauty there at all?
Yeah, I think that apostrophe poem that I read captures that quite well. I think I'm not feeling, given what's going on in the world today, about writing about pretty flowers and pretty birds, and everything is beautiful. So I write sad poems as well. I mean, I think it's important to capture all human emotions, right? Grief, loss, as well as love and caring and appreciation of beauty.
Your cookbook, it is about cooking. Is it specific to cooking venison, or is it venison your go-to dish? Like if you're going to have guests over, I've got some fresh venison here. Tell me a little bit about that one.
Yeah, so I published that again myself like 20 years ago. And when I first, I'm kind of I could say closet back to the land person, but it's not really very closeted. I have a big garden. I love growing my own food. I catch a lot of fish that I eat. And when I first moved to Georgia, it was very easy to hunt deer. And so for about 15 years, I provided all the red meat to our family via hunting venison, hunting deer. And it's become much harder to find places to hunt. I feel like from an ethical perspective, if you're going to eat meat, the most ethical way you could do it is, to get it yourself and to gut it and, and butcher it, and because you know exactly what you're doing, and what it means to take a life to sustain your own life. And it is, I don't know if any of you have hunted but you kill a deer and you gut it and you look at that heart. And I know the first thing that occurred to me was, that looks just like my heart. And that's, it's a realization. It's an ethical grasping of what you are doing. And I feel that that's a highly moral position if you are going to eat meat. But what I found was that there were no venison cookbooks. And I'll also add, I don't know if I have a copy of I do have a copy of my cookbook, also available via my website. And it works with any meat, even chicken, even tofu or seitan, if you're so inclined. So I, when I was an undergrad, I worked my way through school as what would now be called a sous chef in a fancy restaurant. So I knew how to cook, and I thought, well, I'll try to create a bunch of recipes using venison. And the recipes, my wife at that time had just finished her PhD. So we were the kind of archetypal 2-career couple family, and she's in nutrition. So, my goal also was to create kind of relatively quick, but very healthy recipes. I use canned beans, right? I didn't say, buy organic, locally sourced, white beans that you soak then for 2 days, and husk or do what. It's not gourmet in that sense. It's gourmet in the sense of taste. So that was a survival mechanism. There was nothing around. And again, fear of failure, right? Okay, I'll do my own cookbook. So.
Interesting. Now, you said that you've lived down in Georgia or down in the South for a long time, and you have a lot of Southern observation. Do you consider yourself a Southern writer, or do you feel the whole mythology around Southern writers is a bunch of funk?
So I've lived in Athens that entire 41 years. We moved here so that my wife could go to graduate school, and at the same time, I was offered a faculty position at the university. I write, do I consider myself a Southern writer? Do I consider myself a Southerner? I consider myself as someone who, having been born in Rochester, New York, and then having moved to Los Angeles at age 9, and having gone to Berkeley and UC Davis, and then having gotten a job at Athens, I consider myself someone who's been able to choose the best of all 3 places. So I write about the South a lot in terms of the environment. I don't write a lot of political poetry about the South. I like the fact that the races interact a lot more here than they ever did in California or in Rochester, New York, for that matter. It feels, I know this is kind of nebulous, but it feels like a real place to me, It's got warts, it's got great people, it's got striving. It's got things that still have to be done. And, I like that a lot more than kind of my sanctimonious friends in Hollywood who never left LA.
Let's wrap up and talk about your poetry book, Lyrical Years. Does that refer to the lyricisms within the poem? I know as a musician, or are you writing about the years you spent as a musician? I'm just curious about the title, how it relates.
Yeah, that's interesting. So the book is structured in my lifespan, so it starts out when I'm young, and then still pretty young, and young adult and old age. So that's where the years part comes from, and the lyricism is the poetry. So that's the origin of the title. It doesn't involve music at all.
Oh, interesting. Well, Gary, thank you so much for being on the show. It's Gary Grossman, and here is the cover of Lyrical Years, his poetry book, and his website reads a lot like a syllabus. It's fascinating, and there's a lot of information, so check it out. And Gary, thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. This was great, and thanks to everybody who attended.
And to the folks that attended on the live stream that we don't see you in here, feel free, if you want to be in the open mic, to log in right now, use the Zoom link, and I'll let you into the room and you can be part of the open. Thanks again, Gary.
Should I stick around, or what's your preference?